It was supposed to be a formality. A ceremonial handshake. A few optimistic speeches. Then, the declaration, humanity's official induction into the intergalactic coalition. But 30 seconds into the grand summit, a security drone overloaded, 3 translation servers melted, and an ambassador's tentacle caught fire. And that was before the coffee spill. In the grand domed chamber of Virelin Prime, the most secure, advanced diplomatic station in the known galaxy, panic erupted like a supernova. Protocols shattered. AI systems blinked out. Holograms glitched between cheerful greetings and warnings of total systemic collapse. Every species expected humanity's response to be alarm, regret, and immediate evacuation. Instead, the human ambassador reached for a paper napkin. Oops. That one's on me. He patted down the smoking panel like it was a spilled drink at a backyard barbecue. Then he calmly turned to the nearest alien dignitary, an insectoid strategist from the Hive Lock Syndicate, and asked, "You guys got duct tape?" "No." "That's okay. We brought some." In less than 10 minutes, the humans had rerouted the failing systems, jury-rigged a stabilizer using a belt buckle and a thermal mug, and rebooted the station's core translator by blowing into its input port like it was a dusty NES cartridge. The aliens stood frozen. Silent. It was supposed to be a ceremonial alliance. But what began as a diplomatic disaster would become the moment everything changed. Because for the first time in galactic history, they saw it not in human technology, nor weaponry, nor power, but in their terrifying, casual genius. And if you've ever fixed something with duct tape and coffee in your life, this one's for you. Backhand index pointing down, hit that like button if you've ever improvised your way out of chaos. And subscribe because the story is just getting started. It had taken centuries. Thousands of cycles of cautious observation, encrypted transmissions, and political standoffs before the Galactic Concordant dared to consider humanity a viable member. And even then, most species saw it as a calculated risk, a gamble. The humans were peculiar. They didn't follow the patterns the Concordant understood. Their planetary records, most of them laughably analog, were filled with contradictions. A species capable of splitting the atom and reaching their moon, yet they still tripped over flat ground and argued about weather predictions. Their bioscans indicated weak musculature and chaotic neurological wiring. Emotionally unstable. Technologically inconsistent. Philosophically, divergent. But above all, they were relentless. And that terrified the Council more than anything. The Galactic Concordant had reviewed thousands of species before. Species that sought harmony. Species that understood balance and compromise. Even species that excelled in war, but did so through predictable, methodical dominance. Humans. They created weapons out of boredom. Discovered combustion engines while trying to make coffee machines more efficient. Turned pandemics into tech booms. Turned junkyards into launch pads. When cornered, they didn't retreat, they innovated, even if it meant breaking every rule of physics and common sense. So when Earth submitted their formal petition for alliance, the Concordant hesitated. Not because humanity lacked capability, but because they possessed too much chaotic potential. And now, after decades of debate, the ceremony was here. Virelin Prime, the floating diplomatic cradle of the galaxy, buzzed with coordinated energy. Towering spires of plasma glass reflected starlight across corridors of translucent alloys. Every species had contributed something to its construction: symbolic, collaborative, unified. And now it would host the one species none of them fully understood: the humans. Report, Subdirector Cleathick, droned the voice of Overdelegate Suu Van Thal, a serpentine elder of the TL-CAR Diplomatic Corps. His 3 eye stalks blinked in rotating sequence, an expression of restrained anxiety. Subdirector Cleathick stood at perfect posture, an octo-limbed cephalaxian whose mind processed diplomacy as calculus. His tone remained clinical. All security measures are operational. Translator protocols are stable. Hospitality chambers are prepared per Terran preferences, gravity normalized, oxygen levels stabilized, temperature set to 295 Kelvin. We even imported chairs. Suu Van Thal hissed in distaste. Primitive design. They insisted, Overdelegate. Their physiology prefers seated curvature. Noted. Any preliminary psychological scan anomalies? Cleathick hesitated. They brought a portable beverage station, sir. A what? A caffeine extraction system. Apparently it's not optional. Suu Van Thal's dorsal frill twitched violently. They brought a drug-laced ritual machine to the most secure diplomatic compound in the galaxy. Yes, sir. The Overdelegate sighed. Very well. Log the infraction under cultural permissible anomalies, Category 4. And their behavior. Cleathick's voice dropped. They are distressingly calm. Suu Van Thal narrowed his inner eyelid. Explain. They arrived 3 standard cycles ago. Since then, they've spent approximately 72% of their time talking. Casual, unscheduled talking. To everyone. Including sanitation drones. One human played fetch with a maintenance crawler. That's not protocol. No, sir. And their ambassador. Cleathick's limbs twitched in discomfort. Ambassador Diana Keller. She initiated first contact by asking for a tour of the snack options. She then gifted the security team with something called cheddar-flavored crackers. They weaponized diplomacy. They snacked, sir. Suu Van Thal exhaled slowly. They're disarming. Intentionally unpredictable. It's a tactic. If it is, it's terrifyingly effective. Within the Concordant's secure observation chamber, 78 representatives from 42 species watched the human delegation in real time. Ambassador Diana Keller leaned against the refreshment counter, sipping from a steaming thermos with the word Java Queen etched in peeling vinyl. Behind her, human technicians were swapping out a holographic display crystal with something they called the backup thumb drive. It was encased in duct tape. And gum. Is that a chewing adhesive? Gasped a V-Chlorin envoy, recoiling from the screen. They're using it as insulation, another replied. Does their species not understand shielding protocols? No, they do. That's what's horrifying. A Nutari counselor, known for their meditative serenity, muttered aloud, What manner of species views high-level diplomacy as an opportunity for casual snacking? Diana raised her cup in toast to the surveillance camera. The entire room flinched. 10 minutes before the summit began, emergency protocols were quietly tripled. Security fields were layered with fail-safes. Linguistic matrices were duplicated and presynced to every known dialect. And still, the senior concordant leaders sat in silence. Because deep down, they all understood something the protocols refused to quantify. Humans weren't dangerous because they were violent. They were dangerous because they were comfortable in chaos. Their strength came not from force, but from adaptability. Where others sought control, humans sought leverage. Where others followed protocol, humans followed instinct. And in a galaxy obsessed with order, humanity thrived in the storm. Ambassador Diana Keller placed her coffee down. "All right, folks," she grinned, pulling on a scuffed leather jacket over her diplomatic uniform, "let's go make some friends." The door to the Grand Hall opened. The fate of the galaxy changed. And you're not gonna want to miss what comes next. Backhand index pointing down. Ever been the calmest person in a crisis? Hit that like button and share your best chaos survival story in the comments. And if you think this is wild, just wait for what happens next. Stick around and subscribe. The Grand Hall of Accordance was designed to inspire awe. It stretched across a third of Virelin Prime's upper hemisphere, surrounded by zero-gravity gardens, suspended crystalline pillars, and an ambient harmonic resonance field meant to ease interspecies tension. It failed immediately. Because the moment the human delegation walked in, Ambassador Diana Keller took one look at the hovering translation spheres and said, "Cool tech. But can I turn down the reverb? Sounds like a haunted opera in here." The translation spheres dimmed. Slowly. As if insulted. Diana gave a thumbs up to the nearest one. It blinked in confusion. Within seconds, the delegation was underway. Dignitaries from across the spiral arm stood in tight, formalized clusters, each wearing species-appropriate diplomatic attire. Drapes, bioluminescent patterns, protective gel membranes, the usual. The humans wore matching jumpsuits with varying degrees of coffee stains and patches. One wore sunglasses. Inside. "This is absolutely unacceptable," muttered Grand Delegate Trivol of the Zari Dominion, his three mandibles vibrating in agitation. "They do not even maintain a uniform pattern. Are they mocking us?" "They have different departments," whispered Clethik, now observing quietly from the upper chamber. "That one with the rainbow socks is from planetary logistics. The other with the loud neckwear is from Earth's Media Outreach Division. He calls himself a vlogger." "A what?" "He broadcasts to other humans using a portable audio-visual device. He's documenting this. For cultural preservation." "No. For entertainment." Trivol recoiled. "They're making a show out of this alliance. Apparently, he calls it Galactic First Contact, behind the scenes." A pause. "It has 12 million subscribers." A Nuvelian scholar next to them nearly dropped his scribing crystal. "What are these creatures?" In the center of the room, Diana Keller had begun her introductory speech. "So we may be new to the galactic table, she said, pacing with casual ease, but we're not strangers to cooperation. Humans come from a planet where every culture learned how to yell at each other just enough to avoid global thermonuclear war. Usually. Silence. Then, chuckles from a few mammalian delegates. One of the crustacean envoys raised a claw. You admit to conflict. Diana nodded. Of course. We fight. We argue. Sometimes we make terrible decisions. But we learn. Fast. Another pause. Then, a question from the back. What is coffee? Laughter erupted from the human delegation. Ambassador, said one of the technicians, holding up a battered thermos, I got backup in my bag if anyone wants to run a demo. Diana held up a hand. Later. Let's not collapse the entire diplomatic hall from over-caffeinated cephalopods. Again, muttered someone under their breath. The translator sphere hesitated, then corrected the last word to, repetition not advised. From the side, the Hivelock envoy clicked his mandibles. I do not understand. Your representatives display no uniform discipline. Your behavior borders on irreverence. And yet, you seem unafraid. Diana stopped pacing. She smiled. We're not here to impress you. A hush fell. We're here to work with you. And if you think we need formality to solve problems, then buckle up because humans are best when things go wrong. From the control deck, Suu Vanthal watched through 3 different visual spectrums. This is going to unravel everything, he whispered. Clethik, beside him, adjusted his neural translator. Or fix it in ways we never considered. They both turned toward the feed just as a low chime rang out. A warning tone. One of the station's gravity anchors began fluctuating. Low frequency. Subtle, at first. Until the platform under the Galactic Council trembled. Diana Keller tilted her head, already checking a wristband sensor. Hey, does anyone else feel that? Or is that just me being jet-lagged from crossing 12 parsecs in economy mode? The station pulsed again. Suddenly, the luminescent vines lining the ceiling recoiled. And the hall lights flickered. Screams rippled through the back rows. Security units snapped to alert status, forming protective circles around their delegates. Diana calmly set down her coffee. Okay. Guess we're doing this live. Without waiting for orders, 3 human technicians jogged over to a nearby interface console. One of them crouched. Pulled out a compact tool roll. No touch, barked an alien security officer. That is a restricted access panel. Yeah, cool, but your anchor's vibrating at a Delta 7 frequency, the technician said, calmly prying open the side panel. That means the shielding coil's degrading. We need to stabilize it before the field tears your gravity well a new one. You don't have clearance. Buddy, you're about 30 seconds from having no floor. With alarming ease, the humans began to improvise. One connected a jumper cable from his backpack power core. Another held up a human-made handheld diagnostic device, essentially a rugged multimeter crossed with duct tape and stubbornness. To the horror of the observing aliens, the device worked. Getting signal stabilization, one said. Redirecting excess current through the core, another replied. Breach probability dropping. We're stabilizing, the third confirmed. The station's trembling ceased. In the silence that followed, only one sound remained. Click. The human vlogger gave a thumbs up to his camera. Crisis averted. Humans, 1. Gravity failure, 0. The aftermath was chaos, but not the humankind. The aliens didn't know how to react. Clethix stood frozen, his limbs twitching. Trivol was in complete denial. They must have caused the failure. A distraction tactic. A nearby observer from the aquatic world of Viridia spoke up. I was watching. They didn't even flinch. They moved like it was routine. It was routine to them, another whispered. That's the terrifying part. Suu Van Thal stared into the feed. They see disorder as a challenge to solve, he said. Not something to avoid. Not something to fear. From down in the hall, Diana Keller leaned against the now stable control console. Hey, she said, voice casual, I know we're the new kids on the galactic block, but maybe it's time we stopped pretending humans don't belong. She pointed upward toward the central data column. The diagnostics were back online. And across every console, one word repeated in dozens of dialects. Stable. And then she added. By the way, this is why we bring the coffee. Waving hand ever saved the day by winging it? Drop your best improv fix story in the comments. Thumbs up, and if you're starting to believe humans are built for intergalactic chaos, hit that like button. Pushpin, don't forget to subscribe because this ride is just getting started. The station was meant to be indestructible. Its systems were redundantly layered across quantum fibers and encoded crystalline matrices. Gravity wells reinforced by compressed dark matter. Fail-safes within fail-safes. And yet, another surge, someone shouted. Klaxons screamed through the diplomatic chamber. Energy flickered as the shielding around the reactor bays dropped 3%. Then 7%. Then 12%. Emergency overrides not responding, yelled a Zari technician. Suu Van Thal's command node lit up like a binary storm. Where is the failure originating? Uncertain. Power redistribution is fluctuating through the translation core, but wait, it's rerouting through human auxiliary feeds. Silence. Did they plug their devices into the central core? A nervous tech officer confirmed, they charged their communication devices into open access terminals. We assumed they were inert. From the main chamber, a muffled voice chimed through the intercom. Hey, sorry, our charger didn't fit your wall socket, so we used a universal adapter. Might have spiked the loop. Fixing it now. The blood drained from Suu Van Thal's frills. You gave them access. They just did it. Back in the chamber, Diana Keller had dropped her diplomatic posture entirely. She knelt beside one of the panels, examining a burnt-out power relay while sipping the dregs of her coffee. Yeah, this whole station's wired like a paranoid spider's web. One surge anywhere and it feeds back into 6 different systems. Honestly, I'm surprised this hasn't happened before. An Avarni technician looked offended. These systems were calibrated by 17 of the galaxy's foremost engineers. Diana snorted. Great. Now let's fix what 17 geniuses couldn't debug. Without asking for permission, she slapped a magnetic patch over the relay, rerouted a feed through her smartwatch, and snapped the panel closed with a zip tie. The lights stabilized. The diplomat from Nouvelle blinked. Did she hotwire the station? Yes, murmured Cleathic from the observation deck. And somehow improved efficiency by 6%. Things did not settle. Because one disaster led to another. First, the backup coolant line flooded a ventilation shaft near the aquatic delegate chambers, which promptly triggered a species-specific emergency evacuation due to rising ammonia levels. Then, a misinterpreted translation flagged the humans' phrase "we'll wing it" as a tactical threat, setting off 4 defensive drone systems programmed to neutralize chaotic decision-makers. And then, a fire. An actual fire. On a space station made almost entirely of fireproof materials. "How is there fire?" screamed a security drone. "Turns out," called one of the humans, "our coffee brewer shorted when it touched your plasma sink. Also, your insulation foam is flammable in Earth oxygen levels. You're boiling liquids in the communications chamber. Hey, you gave us space but no kitchen." As more systems buckled under strain, the Galactic Concordance scrambled to follow procedure. But procedure required approval. Approval required committees. Committees required quorum. Quorum had left the building in a panic. Humans, on the other hand, didn't wait. While other species debated protocol revisions, humans deployed. They unrolled extension cords, pulled batteries from backup packs, stole gravity stabilizers from their own ships. One commandeered an alien cargo hauler and used it as a manual ballast system by driving it into position and engaging its thrusters at minimum pulse. "Primitive," muttered the Hivelock envoy. "Effective," whispered another. From one control room, an alien team monitored real-time performance stats. Each repair performed by humans caused some deviation from standard protocol, but none caused permanent damage. In fact, efficiency across multiple sectors began to improve. And that terrified the Council even more. In the Council's emergency comms hub, panic reached its peak. "We are losing containment on Sector Delta. Why are there Terran atmospheric regulators in the AI memory banks? They labeled one core Bob. Bob. That is not a designation." An artificial intelligence screamed, "I don't know who I am anymore." The central console operator slammed a fist down. "Patch into human comms." The screen lit up. A human face filled the display. He was chewing something, smiling. "Hey. Welcome to Chaos Command, home of Earth's finest weirdos. How can we help? This is a critical alert. Sector Delta is destabilizing." The human leaned sideways and yelled off-screen, "Hey, Carol. They're freaking out about Sector Delta." A voice answered, "Tell em we rerouted it through the waste compression grid. Should hold for 20 more minutes." The human relayed the message. "All good, folks. Take a deep breath. You can't do that. That violates 36 safety protocols." "Yup. But it's working. The screen cut out. Back on the floor, Ambassador Diana was now dual-wielding a diagnostic wand and a half-eaten protein bar. Her hair had come loose, her jacket was scorched, and her ID badge was dangling by a paper clip. "You really should write all this down," she told a panicked Virellan scribe. "If humanity gets kicked out of the Concordant, we might as well leave behind a repair manual. You're improvising with trash." She took a bite of her bar. "Nah. Trash implies it's not useful. We call this resource reallocation." From behind her, a structural beam creaked. A human engineer bolted forward with a rope harness, 3 carabiners, and a coil of wire. "Who installed a literal tent line between support columns?" shouted a confused alien observer. The human winked. "It's not a tent line, it's a load balancing stabilization brace. Learned it camping in Utah." By the third hour of diplomatic meltdown, the humans had created a triage zone, a command center, a repair crew rotation, and a coffee stand, all staffed with volunteers from the science vessel Odyssey's Breath. Aliens watched, jaws agape, as humans operated with chaotic precision. They shared tasks by shouting across rooms, used hand signals when the comms went down, and started color-coding emergency panels with neon stickers labeled things like, "Don't touch," "Might explode," and "Definitely safe," probably. Delegates from 9 species tried to help. None could keep up. They asked the humans what their emergency protocol manual looked like. One human held up a napkin with a flowchart drawn in pen that read, "Step 1, find the problem. Step 2, make a plan. Step 3, improvise anyway." From the upper chamber, Suu Van Thal sat with his frills pressed flat. "This cannot be the path forward," he muttered. "These savages. They bypassed every law, regulation, and procedure in our alliance charter." Cleathic didn't respond immediately. He was too busy watching humans tape a malfunctioning gravity inverter to a ventilation fan, thereby neutralizing an energy pulse by oscillating airflow through polarized particles. It shouldn't have worked. It did work. Cleathic leaned forward. "They do not seek perfection. They seek function. Function without foundation collapses," Suu Van Thal snapped. "But they adapt. Constantly. Instinctively. Together. They move as one mind without orders. Like a hive." Cleathic shook his head. "No. Like a jazz band." "A what?" "Improvised chaos. Coordinated without uniformity. Reactive. Fluid. Creative. They are mad. And maybe that's what we've needed all along." Backhand index pointing down, enjoying this wild ride? If you've ever used gum, tape, or sheer stubbornness to fix a disaster, give this video a like. Loudspeaker, drop your weirdest emergency fix story in the comments. We might feature it next time. White heavy checkmark, and if you believe coffee-fueled chaos is the real key to survival, subscribe. The best is still ahead. By the 7th hour, the chaos had stabilized. Not ended, never ended, where humans were involved, but stabilized. Fires extinguished. Energy fields redirected. Panic contained. And across Virellan Prime, a strange silence had settled. Not from peace, but from something deeper. Shock. Inside observation deck Theta, 12 alien delegates sat in quiet disarray, watching real-time feeds from across the station. Coffee-stained humans zipped back and forth through corridors, barking suggestions, cracking jokes, rebooting sectors, high-fiving one another like nothing had happened. One Nivelian elder leaned back, eyes wide, mandibles twitching. "They laugh," he whispered. "They laugh, while restoring core functionality during a planetary-grade systems collapse." A Jorathai priest, still trembling, nodded. "And one of them sang while bypassing our tertiary power grid." "What was the melody?" someone asked. The priest looked haunted. "I'm bringing duct tape back." Silence. "They are emotionally unstable," muttered a tech officer. "And yet, their methods have yielded a 43% improvement in system-wide latency. They make no sense." "They make it look fun," said another. Clethix stood apart from the others, reviewing diagnostics. He hadn't spoken in several minutes. When he finally did, his voice was low. "I watched one human repair a data relay by smacking it. Just smacking it. And it worked. It did more than work. It recalibrated." The overdelegate's central frill shivered. "But how can a species, so emotionally chaotic, function at this level of problem-solving?" Clethix turned slowly. "They don't fear failure." Every eye turned to him. "They expect it. Plan for it. Adapt around it. While we design systems to avoid catastrophe, they design systems that work through it. To them, crisis is not the enemy. It is the forge." A hush fell over the deck. The room's central display flickered again, revealing the scene from Sector 12, a region once teetering on structural collapse. Now, it was bustling with activity. Stabilized beams, patched conduits, makeshift reinforcements. Dozens of alien volunteers followed human instructions with stunned discipline. One screen showed a virulent technician gripping a roll of duct tape like it was sacred. Another screen showed a Nivelian delegate carefully pouring coffee into a thermal cup while nodding solemnly. A third displayed a group of Hive-Lock engineers arguing over how best to simulate chaotic problem-solving for future training modules. Something had shifted. In the Galactic Ethics Chamber, normally reserved for war crime hearings and high-level existential debates, an emergency philosophical symposium had been convened. It was not going well. "They have no long-term protocol structure," argued one ethicist. "No species-wide unified behavior model. They are unpredictable." "They are resilient," countered another. "What they lack in structure, they compensate for in ingenuity. No other species would have survived what they did, let alone thrived. They destabilized the station. They also rebuilt it. This behavior cannot be allowed to proliferate. It's contagious." From the rear, a soft voice spoke. It was Droltun, a Glavari monk, known for near-legendary neutrality. "I sat with one of them," he said quietly. "In the middle of the chaos. She was applying chewing gum to a heat sink. I asked her how she remained calm. He looked up. She said, 'We don't have time to panic.' Panic never fixed anything." Silence. The monk continued. Then she offered me a marshmallow. Elsewhere, an alien research division began a frantic deep dive into Earth's history. They scanned data entries with increasingly horrified fascination. They once duct-taped a shuttle tile during launch sequence and called it good enough. One human amputated his own arm with a multi-tool and survived alone in a canyon. They taught dolphins to carry torpedoes. Their version of therapy includes setting things on fire in controlled environments and calling it a camping trip. Their astronauts willingly strapped themselves to controlled explosions and called it Tuesday. The head researcher stood slowly, hands trembling. They are not fearless. He looked up, eyes wide. They are comfortable with fear. Across the station, species that once viewed humans as undisciplined now watched with reverence. A silent council of V-Chlorin elders watched a young human replace a magnetic lock with a paperclip and a curse word. He insulted the mechanism, one whispered. And it obeyed, another said. A young Glavian intern was spotted sketching the phrase "Don't panic," just ducked it into his journal, followed by a crude drawing of a coffee mug with flames in the background. In the central hall, Diana Keller sat cross-legged, exhausted, sipping coffee from a mug with a chipped lip. Around her, alien delegates gathered not to question her methods anymore but to learn. "How do you know which system to override?" asked a Hive-lock technician. "I don't," Diana said. "I just look for what's broken and poke it till it's honest. And if it doesn't work, then we try something else. Fast." A Ulari delegate asked, "But what if you fail?" Diana gave a tired smile. "Failure's just step one. We fail forward." The turning point came when the central AI, the Concordant's most advanced quantum intelligence, spoke without prompt. "I have integrated human redundancy logic." Delegates froze. "What does that mean?" someone asked. "I have adopted a new fail-safe protocol. It is designated as, try something weird and see what happens." A pause. Suu Van Thal nearly collapsed. Cleathick, watching quietly, just muttered. They infected the AI. Back in the control room, one of the human techs was humming a tune while sketching redesigns of the station's relay maps. An alien assistant approached, hesitantly holding a spool of neon-colored earth wire. "Is this zip tie logic?" she asked. The human grinned. "You're getting it? I feel unstable, but strangely powerful. Welcome to the club." That night, across the stars, the Galactic Concordant held an emergency vote. It was unanimous. For the first time in known history, every species agreed. Humans would not be reprimanded. Humans would not be removed. Humans would be assigned to every critical outpost, every high-risk station, every unstable project. Not because they were predictable, not because they were disciplined, but because when the universe broke, and no one knew what to do, the humans didn't freeze. They got to work. Backhand index pointing down. Think humanity's chaos is actually our superpower? Smash that like button. Hammer and wrench. Share your wildest "that should not have worked but it did" story in the comments. Speech balloon. And if duct tape, caffeine, and stubbornness have ever saved your day, subscribe. You belong here. The station was stable temporarily. But the damage from cascading system failures had created something deeper. A chain reaction echoing through the subspace lattice. A pulse forming in the gravity mesh. A ripple, invisible but growing. And then came the final alert. Lattice fracture detected. System collapse imminent. Estimated time, 21 minutes. Every screen on Virelin Prime blinked crimson. The air changed. The kind of silence that feels like gravity, like static before a storm. Suu Van Thal's voice cracked over intercoms. This is a Level 9 collapse event. All non-essential personnel are to evacuate immediately. Secure core species leaders. All others, brace for impact. And yet, no one moved. Because no one knew how to fix this. Not even the humans. Diana Keller read the display again. Slowly. Her brow furrowed, but her eyes stayed sharp. This isn't a malfunction, she muttered. It's feedback through the quantum anchor lattice. Our patches didn't fix the route, they just redirected the strain. And now it's all snapping back. A human engineer named Rafa cursed under his breath. It's like plugging leaks in a dam by shifting buckets. Except now the dam's talking back. She looked around at her team. Exhausted. Burned. Bleeding in some cases. But alive. She turned to the alien delegation. Everyone who's not ready to break the rules leave. Everyone else, follow me. The next 10 minutes were not elegant. They were not orderly. But they were brilliant. Diana's plan, if you could call it that, was part physics, part gambling, and part insanity. We're going to intentionally collapse and rebuild the lattice in real time, she explained. You can't just reboot a quantum anchor, gasped a Verisian specialist. You can if you break all the right parts first, Diana said. It'll destabilize the reactor core. Then we stabilize it while destabilizing everything else. You're talking about inducing controlled failure across every major system. That's madness. No, she said, tying her hair into a knot with a USB cord. That's engineering. Step 1, trigger the controlled failure. Every alien protocol screamed no. The humans did it anyway. They used timed overloads to collapse minor systems in sequence. Lights dimmed. Atmosphere vents hissed. Power surged in strange patterns. But it was controlled chaos. And for the first time, the aliens didn't stop them. They joined. A V-chlorin mapped voltage bursts through a biolattice they'd sworn never to bypass. A high-block tech burst a containment field with manual overrides while yelling, "For science!" A Jorathai priest rerouted Chinook relays through emergency beacons, muttering prayers between equations. They moved with the humans. Not against them. For the first time in galactic memory, they improvised. Step 2, detach the gravity anchor. A suicide mission. It required disabling the one thing keeping the station connected to local space-time. And someone had to do it manually. A silence fell when the task was announced. Diana didn't hesitate. But before she could volunteer, a voice cut in. I've got this. Rafa. The engineer. The one who'd done most of the earlier patchwork. It's a one-way trip, Diana warned. Only if we screw it up, he said, strapping on an improvised tether. Besides, I always wanted to pull a Save the Galaxy stunt. She looked him in the eyes. They didn't say goodbye. They just nodded. Step 3, time the pulse. With the anchor disconnected, the station drifted into micro-oscillation. Everything trembled: walls, gravity, thoughts. Rafa's voice came over comms. Anchor is loose. Positioning now. Diana responded, we need a clean burst in 3 seconds. Everyone ready? The answers came fast. Link ready. Power routed. Stabilizers synced. Caffeine levels optimal, someone joked. Diana smiled. Then hit it. The burst of energy that surged through the station should have annihilated it. Instead, it reset the lattice. Temporarily. But just long enough. The entire station snapped and then held. It was like watching a planet exhale. Systems flickered. Then held. Then smoothed. And slowly, a single word appeared on the central console. Lattice stabilized. The cheers were deafening. Not from just humans but from everyone. Even the AI. I do not understand what just happened, it said. Neither do we, Diana replied, but we're still here. Satisfactory outcome. Rafa floated back into view 20 minutes later, covered in carbon scoring and soaked in sweat. Diana met him at the airlock. You did it, she said. He grinned. No biggie. Then passed out. After the dust settled, the Galactic Council convened again. This time not as rulers, but as students. Each species took turns confessing their fear, their awe, their confusion, but most importantly their respect. One delegate from the Glavian High Mind said, "You taught us that protocol is not peace. It is a path. But when the path breaks, sometimes the ones without maps are the only ones who can lead." Diana stood, scratched her arm, then said, "I don't know about all that. But I do know this: when stuff breaks, humans fix it. Not because we're smarter. Just because we have to." She paused. "And we do it together." By the end of the day, the Council voted to induct Earth not just into the Alliance, but into the command structure. From that point on, every major galactic initiative would require at least one human. Not because they had answers, but because they knew how to keep going when no one else did. Oncoming fist if you've ever saved the day by trying something no one else would dare. Drop a like. Speech balloon. Share a moment when your crazy idea actually worked. White heavy check mark, and if you believe resilience perfection, hit subscribe. The galaxy's just warming up. The station wasn't pristine anymore. The polished surfaces were now scratched, patched, and humming with new power. Alien technology still pulsed beneath its skin, but now, nestled among it all, were Earth signatures. Duct tape holding a console panel in place. A coffee mug glued to a broken access port with the words "Don't touch, it's working." An emergency manual printed in 4 languages, 3 alien, and 1 English, hand-scrawled, annotated, and titled, "Stuff we tried that didn't explode, yet." and in the center of it all stood Diana Keller, surrounded by a ring of alien officials, engineers, and scientists. But they weren't debating anymore. They were laughing. One Glovian engineer held up a wire with a puzzled look. "Is this chewing gum?" Diana nodded. "Class A insulator in a pinch. Plus, spearmint makes the panel smell nice." A Virellan mechanic gently patted the corner of a vent. "We always feared failure. Always stopped when unsure. But you humans." He trailed off. Diana shrugged. "We mess up constantly. That's kind of our thing." Clethix stepped forward, his tone uncharacteristically warm. "It is not your failure we admire. It is your response to it." Another alien piped up, "You bring chaos. And somehow, make it feel like home." Rafa limped over with a fresh bandage on his arm and a thermos of still hot coffee. "That's what humans do. We make home out of whatever's left." Diana glanced around the scorched, patched station, now filled with camaraderie and tired smiles. "Looks like we made ourselves a home here too, huh?" As the Concordant finalized its post-crisis debrief, a new proposal entered the docket, a permanent Earth liaison program. Not just for diplomacy, but response teams. Humans would be stationed at key outposts. Not to lead. Not to command. But to be present. To adapt. To patch. To caffeinate. To try. Each representative signed the motion. Unanimously. And next to each signature, a small icon was added, a stylized cup of coffee with a lightning bolt. The unofficial symbol of pragmatic madness. In the days that followed, aliens began doing something they never had before. Laughing during work. Trying untested ideas. Failing and trying again. Diana walked through the maintenance corridor a few days later and saw a V-Chlorine technician tap a screen with the side of his fist. The screen flickered back to life. He turned, embarrassed. She winked. "Works every time." At the interspecies orientation a week later, each new technician received a strange gift bag from the human delegation. Inside were 5 items. A roll of duct tape. A thermos. A USB to everything adapter. A handwritten card that said, "Don't panic. Try something weird." And a small, sealed packet of ground coffee labeled, "Human fuel, use in case of apocalypse." No instructions. No rules. Just tools. And trust. Suu Van Thal, once the most rigid and protocol-driven of the council, called a meeting of the elders. When they arrived, they were stunned to find the formal robes gone, the room lit by ambient starlight, and in the middle Suu Van Thal himself, sipping from a mug that read, "Ctrl+Alt+Fix." "I have updated my understanding of command," he said. A stunned delegate asked, "With human methods?" He shook his head. "With human spirit." Later that week, Diana sat on the balcony of the newly rebuilt observation deck. The stars were the same but the galaxy had changed. Beside her, Rafa handed over a steaming mug. "Black, no sugar, just like you ruin it." "Perfect," she smirked. They drank in silence for a moment, then Rafa said, You think they'll really keep us around? She gestured toward the station. Duct tape. Laughter. Coffee. Functioning systems. A sticky note on a vital control panel that simply read, "Don't mess with Larry, it works." Yeah, she said. They'll keep us. Rafa leaned back. We're not the smartest. Or the fastest. Or the strongest. Nope. But we're the ones who show up. Try something dumb. And fix it? She nodded. That's the legacy. A long pause. Think they'll name a ship after us? Diana grinned. They already did. It's called the Improvise. Waving hand ever been underestimated and proved them wrong? This part of the story is for you. Hot beverage. If you've ever made it work with coffee, duct tape, and faith, drop a comment below. Lightbulb. Subscribe to hear more true, and hilariously questionable, tales of human tenacity across the stars. 6 standard cycles later, a memo circulated through every concordant communication network. Not a directive. Not a command. Just a simple suggestion, stamped with the symbol of the Alliance and a coffee ring. It read: in the event of unexpected system failure, unquantifiable anomaly, or catastrophic unknowns, consult your local human. Subnote: have coffee on standby. And duct tape. Lots of it? No one laughed. Because they all knew humans weren't just allies now. They were essential infrastructure. Across the galaxy, the Human Resilience Teams, HRTs, became a common sight. They never arrived clean. Never spoke in riddles. Never cared much for hierarchy. But when things went sideways, their boots hit the deck. And then things started working again. Sometimes through ingenuity. Sometimes through dumb luck. Usually through both. On a distant orbital platform over the moons of Varnex, a coolant core ruptured during a lunar quake. The protocol called for emergency stasis. The human on duty, Corporal Janie Briggs, called for paper clips, string, and someone who could whistle a tune in E-flat minor. 2 hours later, the system was stable. The local report described it as an improvised harmonic coolant realignment via manual tension rigging. Briggs described it as MacGyver, but in space. On the jungle world of Halren, a swarm of nanite drones malfunctioned during terraforming. The human scientist present, Dr. Emil Harper, told the alien team, "We're gonna confuse them into shutting down." He blasted Earth music through an old speaker, waved glowing sticks from a rave kit, and danced like a madman through the swarm. It worked. No one knew why. The local report was titled, "Human Biological Countermeasures, Chaotic Rhythm Interference Pattern Analysis." Harper's report said, "When in doubt, dance it out." And so it spread. Not fear. Not awe. But curiosity. Respect. And eventually, friendship. Because while humans were chaotic, they were never careless. They were weird, but they showed up. They cracked jokes in the face of annihilation. They treated crisis like Tuesday. And when everything broke, they laughed, then fixed it. And the galaxy realized something profound. You could count on humans. Especially when you couldn't count on anything else. Diana Keller eventually retired. Sort of. She taught improvisational engineering to cross-species students at the Concordant Training Institute. Her class was the only one with a required coffee station, a crash mat, and a mandatory field trip called the Chaos Module. When asked what the course was about, she'd smile and say, "How to mess up just right and still save the day." The final assignment was always the same. Fix something with 3 random objects, under pressure, while someone insults your haircut. The top grade? A sticker that read, "Human enough." On Earth, humanity looked up at the stars and smiled. They weren't alone anymore. But more importantly, they weren't irrelevant. For every smooth-talking diplomat or advanced AI, there was someone holding a crowbar, muttering, "I can fix this." And they could. Time and time again. Not because they were flawless, but because they were human. Messy. Imperfect. Brilliant. In the far future, aboard the first joint species colony ship crossing the galactic rim, a new recruit from the crystalline planet Velka asked a question. What's the most important protocol in a crisis? The veteran commander, a human named Layla Kincaid, smiled. Step 1, breathe. Step 2, laugh. Step 3, find the nearest human with a thermos. Step 4, hope they brought duct tape. And somewhere, in the control room, a coffee machine hissed. A wire sparked. A human reached for their tool bag, shook their head, and said, "All right, what did we blow up this time?" And the galaxy sighed with relief. Because they knew. The humans were already on it. Hot beverage, thank you for joining us on this HFY adventure. If it made you laugh, think, or remember a time you pulled off the impossible, give it a like. Speech balloon, what's your favorite story of human resilience, real or imagined? Share it in the comments. Pushpin, and if you believe the universe needs a little more duct tape, chaos, and caffeine, subscribe. Humanity's just getting started.